Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the planning board meeting to order for March 25th, 2024. My name is Carrie Martinek. I'm chair of the planning board. Before we get started, I have a few announcements to read. This open meeting of the planning board is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency signed into law March 29th, 2023. All members of the planning board are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The act allows the planning board to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of the meeting may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link listed on the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Millie Milton. Millie, we just can't hear you.
Here.
Okay. Bill Pierce.
Here.
Amy Pretsky.
Here.
Anthony Zeiton.
Here.
Staff, and I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Bob Federico. Bob may have stepped out for a minute, so that's okay. Ground rules for the meeting. The chair will invite each speaker or applicant on the agenda by name to make a presentation and speak to their application. Participants will provide their full name and hold until their name is called. Each speaker will be asked to mute their phone or computer when not speaking and to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate meeting minutes. Those responding will be asked to wait until the floor is yielded to them by the chair. Speakers who wish to respond to the comments of others do so through the chair, taking care to identify themselves. Each vote taken by the board will be conducted by roll call. For public comment by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand and wait to be recognized by the chair. Please note part of your phone number will be visible to those viewing the meeting. By Zoom, click raise hand on the bottom of your screen and wait to be recognized. The chair will ask members of the public who wish to speak to identify their names and addresses only. Once the chair has a list of all public commentators, the chair will call on each by name and afford approximately 3 minutes for comments. Tonight, we do have an executive session. So with that, it's the first meeting, it's the first item on our agenda. So what we'll do tonight is we'll vote to move into executive session. And then we'll come back into the general session, the public session, after then to continue to discuss the continued public hearing for the bylaws. With that, first item on the agenda is executive session pursuant to MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21, Subsection 3, litigation regarding pending land use litigation. The Gutierrez Company versus Northborough Planning Board, Land Court Number 21, MISC 000380. Due to the chair's determination that a discussion regarding this matter is an open meeting may have detrimental effect on the litigating position of the board. Based on that, is there a motion to move into executive session?
So
I make
moved.
a motion to move into executive session.
Second.
Second.
Great. All in favor, Millie?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
Anthony?
Aye.
And Carrie's an aye. So right now we'll move over to the executive session and then come back to continue the public hearing for zoning bylaws. Thanks so much. Okay, so we'll just give it another minute for Millie to come back over and Lori. And I think we're already streaming. And I see Bob is there.
Yeah, well,
Hi, Bob. Thanks for waiting.
no problem.
Okay, we're just waiting for Lori and Millie. Oh, Lori's in the audience. Let's see. Oh, I don't have, I'm not oh, here's Lori. Okay, she's in. And and there's Millie. Okay, great. All right, Laurie, you should be back in the panelist section here. Okay.
There I am. I can't turn on my video for some reason.
And then, oh, I am a co-host. Okay,
Can
strange.
you hear me?
Yes, we can. We can
Oh.
hear you. Um, let's see. I don't have my usual features that I'm allowed to do, so I don't know what's going on here, but
Yeah, they set up the meeting a little bit differently, so that's probably why we can't see anyone.
okay, so the only thing is if it is a public hearing, I just need to, are you able to see if there are attendees raising their hand? Because I won't be able to see.
Yeah,
So-
so the way they set up the meeting, it's not like a panelist and attendee kind of thing.
Okay,
So
everybody's in one spot.
everyone they only can view it. They unfortunately can't come in as an attendee.
Okay,
But
can they call?
I don't think so.
Okay. Lori, is that problematic?
This isn't a webinar, right?
This is not a webinar, it's just a meeting. Yeah, Linda set it up
Okay.
that way.
So if anybody wants to join the meeting, then they're going to be present with the rest of us on the screen.
Okay, that's fine. The one thing I have in terms of the agenda, did we need to open the public hearing for the citizens petition or that already happened? I'm sorry if I.
Nope, that's going to be on our next meeting agenda on April 2nd.
Oh, okay, all right, good, great.
So the only thing we have tonight is the continuance of the public hearing on our regular warrant articles.
Okay, great. I'm with you. All right, so now next on our agenda tonight is the continued public hearing for the purpose of seeking public opinion on proposed amendments to the zoning map and the following sections of the Northborough zoning bylaw as listed in tonight's agenda. So for tonight, it sounds like, Amy, I wasn't at the last meeting and I know you chaired it. Is there any outstanding items that you'd recommend we start with here, or has everything been cleared, or?
I left it open in case anyone had anything to add. Lori was going to take off the 5 acres of Harvey for the MBTA. So it sounds like with the email that came out today, Lori, you worked on it and you removed it.
Yeah, so the warrant that is before the selectmen tonight incorporates all the changes. So the changes that I sent out 2 versions. There was a clean version that I sent last week to the town administrator's office, which had all of the changes incorporated as a regular document. So this is the way it should appear in the warrant. And then he also wanted a track changes version. And it's only for those 3 articles that changed. So those are the only 3 articles that I submitted. And I submitted that revised version of the zoning map. So it was just the blow up itself, because the zoning map itself is really difficult to see. the limits of the parcels. So I redid the blow ups so that it only showed the 5 acres of Harvey. And I've been working with GIS on a prettier version, which is going to be a handout at town meeting. So that's the version that is going to be before town meeting for the vote. So any other changes, if there are any changes that come out tonight, those changes will not be incorporated on the warrant. Those will have to be made on the town meeting floor.
Okay, are there any proposed changes from the board this evening on any of these final articles?
I guess the only changes that could happen, and it probably wouldn't even affect the warrant article that went to the selectmen because it's not done yet, is the map. What we had last time was a discussion about, we had 66.4 acres. That's how much we ended up with MBTA. We only need 50. And I discussed taking off a couple small lots because, in my opinion, I added them at the last minute because we said we were so close to being at 50 acres. We ended up at 66.4. And then there was a discussion on whether 7 acres had to be removed because they were wetlands or excluded. But then we found out from the Barrett company that those acres aren't going to be excluded. So even taking out the 5 acres of Harvey, we still are at 61.2 acres and 918 units. So if we wanted, we could take out a little more. Like one of the ones I brought up was I threw in 0 Hudson, which is 0.39 acres in downtown neighborhood because it was next to 56 Hudson. Like we could take that off. It was just thrown on at the end to make sure we went above, but now we are above by 11 acres. So,
That parcel is largely undevelopable because
right.
of the Rivers Protection Act. So it doesn't hurt to have it in there because you can't really build on it anyway. So you got to remember that there's a 200-foot buffer on either side of a perennial river or stream. So the first 100 feet is a no build buffer. The second 100 feet you can build, but there's mitigation. So, you know, chances are it would, he was talking about doing like a little playground and a canoe launch and parking. So if I remember correctly, there was no building proposed there anyway. And it is doubtful that they will be able to get a building in because of the river that's right there.
Then why would we even leave it on? That was just my thing. Why not just take it off if it doesn't, if it can't be developed anyways, why not confuse the issue? Why confuse the issue and leave it on the map?
What is our goal? So if we're over, what did we hope to end up with in the end? Is it we just wanted slightly over 50 or we were aiming for a 55? Like what was our original target?
So what you're required to have by law is 50 acres.
Okay.
So, I mean, the bulk of the land that is included is unlikely to result in any units whatsoever. Because it's already developed. So that goes for, of course, the condo development, townhouses on Hudson. That goes for the Heritage Village, which is owned by the Housing Authority. 56 Hudson, of course, just went for approval of an addition, a large addition, which is under construction. So there was, what I'm hoping to get is some sort of developable land in the downtown area so I can leverage that to get grant money for downtown revitalization. So if you remove all of the development potential or the bulk of it, then that is going to make the likelihood of getting grants smaller and smaller.
Okay, so Amy, you mentioned the 0.39, which doesn't seem like a huge swipe. Was there any other
well, before it mentioned, how many units do we want on Harvey? With 5 acres, you get 75. With 3 acres, you get 45, which is more palatable to the people.
Then we'll have to rerun the analysis again, because the analysis was run for 10 acres and it was run for 5 acres. So
Right.
I had to pay $1,200 to have that analysis rerun. If we change the acreage again, then we're gonna have to go back and have them rerun the analysis a third time. And that's
But if
gonna
we're just
cost more money.
subtracting things that were already analyzed, what are they rerunning? Just adding up new numbers?
Because
Seems-
they have to figure out how much is excluded land. So once again, we have riverfront. So we have the same issue with the Rivers Protection Act buffer. So every time you change the amount of land, like the parcel size, then they have to rerun it with their analysis tool.
Isn't that just this? That's just the page, the Excel spreadsheet. Like today, you went from 10 to 5 acres with Sarah.
No.
Isn't that?
Because they had rerun the analysis before, so they had provided me with the Excel spreadsheet before. So I just took the numbers from that Excel spreadsheet that had the amount of excluded land, and I plugged it into this this page. Turns out that I had missed one area, so I kept getting an error message. So she fixed that for me. So that's what we did today.
I mean, the way they developed this, the towns were supposed to be able to do it without a consultant. I have a hard time believing that they would
Every
make
time you want to change, we
every-
gotta pay $1,200.
right. I mean, I can go back and try to figure out, I don't know if I can, but how to run it, because you're supposed to be able to run it. Every town's supposed to be able to run it. So to take 2 acres off, it definitely wouldn't put us below the 50 acres. And we're at 918 units. It's not going to put us below 750.
Well, we need to be realistic here, right? It's not 918 units because you're talking, in order to get to that 918 units, they're going to have to wipe out Avalon and rebuild it from scratch. That's not going to happen.
But that's not even what I'm talking about, though.
But you keep throwing out that 918 number, okay?
I'm being realistic with right
Let's
now.
be
they
realistic
develop-
let's be realistic with not units, right? Let's be realistic with acreage.
So Amy, what area are you looking at when you calculate the 918? Is that the whole,
But that's not even what I was trying to say, but those are the numbers she came up with. What I was trying to say is right now with 5 acres on Harvey, someone can come in and put in 75 units. If we wanted someone to come in and put in 45 units, then it has to go down 2 acres to 3. That's all I was saying. It's not going to go below the 750, whether it's 918, whether it's 800. It's 918 right now. I'm not saying that's what they're developing. I was just saying, what is palatable to town hall and to town meeting? I mean, I've thrown out this 3 acres a couple times, so I just didn't know that you'd have to pay $1,200 to run it again.
Laura,
But I
you have
don't
something
think you
to
would.
add?
You know, my question for you is, do you like having dumpster storage in the downtown? If you want to keep dumpster storage in the downtown, then fine, go ahead and remove the acreage. I personally do not think dumpster storage is the highest and best use for downtown Northborough. So you have to provide them with an incentive to sell the property and go somewhere else. And giving them a tiny number of units. Remember, there's already a very large building that would have to be demolished. And then on the MSR portion of the parcel, you can pretty much do nothing but a couple of single family homes. So if you want something other than dumpster storage, you have to incentivize it. Otherwise, you're just going to have dumpster storage for the next several years. Because there's no incentive for them to move.
But 45 versus 75, I think 45 in Northborough is a pretty big incentive. We only allow what downtown like 6 units per acre right now.
Millie, did you have something? It looks like were you trying to say, you're on mute if you're.
Anyways, I mean, I guess I feel like we can go on and on with this, whether it's 3 acres, 3.5, 4. Does everybody in the board, or do people feel that we benefit with staying with the 5 acres, which is what we have been working with? I know that less has been brought up, but I feel like we're just continuing to trying to split this into something that actually probably isn't going to benefit anything. Where I almost feel like sometimes we're not going to get the goal of the MBTA, but we're also not going to get the goal of what we're looking for in our downtown. So I'm okay with the 5 acres. I don't think somebody's going to put up 75 units in the next 2 years, 3 years. I do think we need to make something in our proposal palatable for downtown, business movements.
Do you, with that said, Millie, do you want to get closer to the 50, or are you good with the 61.2, I guess? Is that where we are now, 61.2? Or regardless if it's a 5 or something different, what's your view on that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm okay with more than 50. I don't want to go a lot higher, but I'm not sure I'm not sure I feel that cutting another 2 acres out of our downtown area is what I would like to see. I think the argument before has been, it's the schools or the congestion. And I think if it's done well, it can be done. Otherwise, if you carve it down to fewer acres, then it's probably not going to be appeal to a developer.
Yeah, I guess for me, I'd like to be closer to the 50. I don't know the right recipe for that, but I'm not thrilled to beat it by, 10, 11.2 more acres. I don't know. I don't know how to work that, I guess. I'm just curious to know board sentiment on, regardless of where the numbers come from, are you okay with where we are numbers wise? It sounds like, Bill, you're okay with the 61.2.
Yep, it's what we voted on already, so I'm okay with it.
All right, Anthony, is that something, are you okay with it?
Well, I think I would like it to be less, but at the same time, without even seeing all the maps right now, but I don't know where you could pair off, 5 or 6 acres from, whether you just took a chunk out of, one of the existing parcels, which probably wouldn't be meaningful to either good or bad to anybody, because a lot of that is not going to be developable. But I do think, a smaller number than 75 will be easier to get through town meeting for sure.
Mm-hmm. And Amy, it sounds like you want to get closer to 50.
It's not even the 50 acres. I want to get closer to 50 units downtown. I think 75 is a lot of apartments, and I do think with the traffic, and I just think it's a lot.
Okay. All
And
right. I want to, we have I think we have 2 public commenters. I'm not sure. So, Henry Squante, did you want to make a public comment? And I apologize for the format tonight to drag you into the panel box here. I don't want to, is there something you wanted to contribute, or you just are in the audience and this is the only way to get in?
It's the only way I could get in, Terry.
Oh, okay, no problem. I just want to make sure we weren't forgetting to ask if you had a comment. And I guess Patrick F, same for you. Did you have a comment, or just this is the way to join the meeting for you?
On mute.
Perhaps just a way to join. All right, well, if there's anybody who comes in and is surprised to be in the panelist box, again, I apologize for that. We had a different setting tonight. If you do have a question, something to comment, just if you put your hand up, I'm happy to let you share your public comments. Okay, Amy, were there other swipes, I guess, or your point is not really to get closer to 50. It's the downtown area primarily that is of concern to you.
yeah, I just thought 75 is a large unit for downtown, like the School Street apartments, those condos. I think I've added them up before. There are like 60 of them. I don't know, 75 seems like a lot right there. And they can be, it could be 70, they won't be able to fit them. It could be 75 condos, it could be 75, single family, it can be, whatever fits. But I also don't think when everybody says, oh, it's a detriment to the developer, I know I said it before, but I've talked to someone else and they didn't even want to do close to that amount. So I don't think going to 45 is a detriment.
Okay.
But I brought it up enough, and if the board doesn't want to, then we could try to go to town meeting with 75.
Okay,
Well,
and then,
that would be the max. 75 would be the max they could put up, right?
Yes. Unless they do two on, like Lori said, they can put a couple over on the other side, like at MSR, right? If they can do like an A&R, they could subdivide, they could do something. Bring
okay,
in more.
at the last meeting, there was a vote already taken on this or not taken?
I don't know if we ever voted. We kept waiting for Judy's numbers to come back.
I believe you voted last meeting.
I think we did.
Mm.
I don't remember.
Okay, so is there, I guess at this point, is there interest in modifying the downtown component of it? To get back to the 45? So,
I
I mean,
would, it's just changing the map, but it doesn't sound like other people want to, so we can go forward with what the majority feels.
okay. Did you vote in favor of the last one or?
I don't remember. I remember last time we voted to take off the adaptive reuse, but I don't think we closed it because I said, let's keep the hearing open until Carrie gets back.
Right.
And so I don't know if we voted on this.
Mm.
Did you vote on the reuse,
We voted on the reuse.
but not the full bylaw?
It could have been the full bylaw. I really can't remember. I've had so many things in between now and then.
You
was a long
voted
meeting,
on
too.
all of the articles at least once. Three of the articles you voted on, four of the articles you voted on twice.
Mm,
You can never be too sure.
right.
Okay, so then Millie, you're okay with the 75?
I am okay with the 75.
Okay. And I know Bill, he's not on camera, but I think Bill, is
Yeah,
okay.
no, I'm here. They turned off cameras for some reason. I can't turn my camera back on.
Oh.
That was what, yeah, happening.
That's my issue as well. I can't turn my
That's so
camera on.
strange. Sorry about that. I don't know how to fix it. I don't have the powers. Anthony, your thoughts on that?
I gotta say I'm torn on this one. I mean, what if we even went from 5 to 4, just 60 units instead of 75?
Do you think that, Amy, do you think that the people of the town will shoot down the MBTA bylaw because of this?
I know I'll vote no if it's 75. And I'm on
If
the planning
the
board.
meeting is in April, you would vote no.
Yes.
With the possibility that we may see this again in October, is that
Yes.
thought?
I probably wouldn't get up and speak out against it because I'm on the planning board, but I would vote no. I'll vote yes, probably to move it forward so the town can vote on it, but as an individual,
Yeah.
not as a planning board member, I will vote no.
I mean, obviously, we want this to be something that the town does pass.
I mean, you have to think to yourself, like Anthony or Bill. Well, Bill would vote yes because he said yes, but if it's 75, you're going to go to town meeting and actually vote yes. The way.
Yep, I would. And here's why, is because the whole point of the MBTA communities is to get housing for people. That's the whole point of this. And if we're going to try to limit housing, then we're limiting the spirit of what this law is intended to do in the state.
Mm-hmm.
the spirit of an unfunded mandate.
Either way,
That's
I mean, we
that's
all know
concern.
that people are having trouble getting housing, right? And that's simple supply and demand. That's why apartment rates are going up, and they're skyrocketing much higher than how much it costs for a mortgage.
Right. But I don't think this
And
will fix it. When the people came forward, I asked how much they were going to charge. And they were still going to charge $3,000 for an apartment.
Mhm.
yeah, because that's the going rate right now.
Right. I don't think people want small single family homes. The expensive apartments are making people so that they'll never be able to afford a home. And I think the developers will make money building them. Will people be desperate that have to rent them? Is it going to fix the problem? I think the problem is you need more single family homes. You don't need more apartments.
Yeah, but
Amy, there isn't enough supply for the demand. That is why the price is so high. If there's more supply, then the cost of the housing goes down. There are many people who don't want to live in single family housing, but most communities in Massachusetts require the vast majority of the housing to be single family. They don't allow multifamily. Many communities don't even allow duplexes. So that is why there is this supply and demand issue. There are more people seeking apartments than there are apartments, and that's what drives up the price. It's basic economics.
I think we're also going to have trouble with if we have, 177 towns that are trying to approve MBTA, and all of a sudden now you have all these lots and acreages that are available to put the density up. I don't think we're going to have enough builders to do half of this stuff anyways. I really think we're going to be running into problems down the road because of these, some of these mandates that are in place. So, but that's down the road. I don't think every single town is going to be able to come on board and say, okay, here's our 50 acres. We're going to build it all at once. It's just not going to be able to happen.
This is not a housing mandate. They're
Right.
not requiring you to build a single unit. It's a zoning exercise. That's all this is.
Mhm.
And where there is a demand, where there's a desire, where there's developers who are willing to build multifamily housing, that's where the housing will go. So it's not necessarily going to happen in Northborough, even in the short term or the medium term. So especially with these specific parcels that were chosen, the vast majority of them are fully constructed.
Well, if
So
you look at Westboro, they picked their three biggest apartment complexes. That's what everybody's going to do. So it'll be the towns that have the open lots. I mean, I guess Harvey would be one if Harvey was willing to leave. So, I mean, there are a lot of towns that are just putting it on top of. We're not the only ones.
Right. But again, I think that we're going to get into a situation where nobody's going to win on any of this. And because we're going around some of the, some of the intent of it. But I think you got to compromise somewhere. You can't, if we can meet it halfway, I think we'll be good. We do need some housing in our town. We need it in our downtown. Whether it's 45 units or 75 units over 5 or 10 years. I don't think that's going to be, if you don't think people are going to pass that, then we still have other issues. And that's very possible that they won't.
Well, I think there's a big difference between 45 and 75.
I don't disagree to some point, but I don't, I think that, so we go to town meeting with this number, and if it doesn't pass because of that, we know where we stand.
Yeah. But Millie, you're still in the court of the 75 is regardless, you're in favor of.
Well, that's the maximum. It doesn't mean that they're going to do it. They could, but it doesn't mean they will.
Yeah. Okay. And Anthony, what was your final there?
I think I was going back to four, bring it to 60 units.
Oh, sorry, you cut up for
Uh,
me. I don't know if it was I think it was my connection. Do you mind just
No,
repeating?
it was his.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I
Well,
was just going back. I'm just say, I think 75 is too much. I think I wouldn't mind reducing it. Let's go to 60 units with 4 acres is what I would go with. 'Cause I still think that's enticing enough to a developer, and it's still going to bring enough units, towards Main Street.
I'm okay with that. I mean,
maybe does that bring it closer to what you would be a little better in your mind?
Of course, it's getting closer.
I mean, Lori, would we really have to rerun for just for 1 acre?
Yes, we will. We will. So maybe we should just wait until like 2 weeks before town meeting and run it at that point, because I mean, are you guys gonna change your minds again? And I mean, how many times
Yeah.
are we gonna vote on these articles? Every single meeting,
yeah.
the mind is changed and we're going in a different direction. So
Well, I don't think we got our stats until the last meeting, as far as I know, so I don't think that's fair to have us make decisions based on data that's not there for us to make decisions on. Amy, you have something there?
I was gonna say that exact same thing, you know, we talked about I talked about 3 a lot, we talked about other things. I don't think it's fair to say we're changing our mind every time. We got the results an hour before the last meeting. And then even some wrong information was thrown out. So it's like, it's not fair to keep saying that we're flip-flopping. There are towns that have been discussing this and have been having public meetings and public hearings. They've been doing it for longer than we have. So to point the finger and say that we're flip-flopping, this is a huge decision, and I think it took discussion. If we just went into one meeting and said, this is what we're going to do, then I don't think we looked at it hard enough. I think I'm happy that we looked at it the
Yeah, I
way we
think we were gonna have to have this other meeting anyway, simply because we didn't have the information up until an hour before last meeting. So it was either gonna happen today, or which, was in some ways convenient because we had an executive session to tag on to.
The selectmen are having a meeting tonight. They didn't even have the budget numbers till this afternoon. I mean, it's not fair to point fingers.
Okay, so it sounds like, I mean, for me, so I I think it's gonna have a heck of a time passing a town meeting. I'm not sure if it'll squeak by or not. With the majority vote, it may. Um, I think, I guess to Amy, your original point about whether it's about an acre or units, I guess the acre doesn't help a whole lot, but the units may.
Mm.
Um, I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't understand why I would have to pay somebody $1,200 to subtract an acre. Am I interpreting what you're saying correctly, Lori? That sounds crazy.
that's how much they charged us to add in a couple of parcels. So I'm sure there will be an added fee.
Now we're taken out.
How is that just not a math equation? I mean, it seems
Yeah,
like
I'm
something
wondering. I'm
Because
wondering,
they're already in, they've already been calculated. I would think if we take them out, it shouldn't, I mean, it's worth the ask.
Because they're using the GIS to rerun an analysis. It's not an Excel spreadsheet. They are rerunning the analysis, and then that number, which includes, let me see. So there's District 3. So what they're doing is they're coming up with the parcel acreage, the excluded public, excluded non-public, total excluded land, total sensitive land, and then the developable parcel. So that is a GIS exercise.
okay. Do we have to submit this anywhere, this analysis, or is that for our own protection to make sure we hit the numbers?
We have to submit it to the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. So should the bylaw pass, So right now, we've gone too long, so we have missed the pre-approval process. So we had to submit 90 days in advance of town meeting. So that ship has sailed. So now after town meeting, assuming our bylaw gets approved, then we have to send two different places. We have to send to the Attorney General's office like we normally do. But then we also have to send this analysis that Judy Barrett's group is providing, the bylaw itself, the zoning map, and the feasibility study that was done by our other consultant, RKG Associates. We have to send that package into the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities for them to determine that our bylaw is compliant. So,
Okay, and if there's a amendment on town meeting floor, then what? So
so everything is gonna go in after town meeting. So we would send in the bylaw as approved at town meeting.
okay, so if there's an amendment on town floor, we have to rerun the analysis.
Yeah, possibly, if there is a change to the acreage or the parcels, then yes, we would have to rerun the analysis.
Okay, so maybe we should just wait until after town meeting, because even if we pick 4 now, God only knows what'll happen at town meeting. It could be further amendment, it could be who knows what. So then we'd have to run it twice, one for ours and one for amendment at town meeting.
Yeah,
Might
that's a
try
good
to figure
idea.
out how to do it too, because every town should know how to do it. And Laura, you said there's 4 numbers that have to be pulled from the GIS and plugged in there? Because
Uh,
it's not on the GIS
so-
where you run it.
So Amy, the worksheet that I emailed to you,
hmm
so I understand it's that District 3. So you see all the various columns?
Yep.
That's information that's coming out of the GIS.
Okay. So those numbers come from the GIS and then they plug them into the Excel.
Yeah, so it's
And-
coming from the Mass GIS
Yep.
data, as far as I know.
Okay.
If we are to change it to 4 acres, do we have to specify, wouldn't we have to specify which 4 acres, or would they tell us which ones would accommodate the 15 units per acre? And then wouldn't they have to run it based on that specific area? Because it may or may not have undevelopable parcel pieces, areas.
It has to be defined before it goes to town meeting. So the map has to
Yeah.
show which 4 acres.
Well, I would think if we had 5 analyzed and we're just removing one of the 5 that has already gone through the analysis, it's not like we're gonna be surprised that it's, riverfront protected or whatever else. We've already analyzed it. So a subtraction
But
thing. Oh, Millie, go ahead. Maybe I didn't understand your question, Millie.
yeah, but I wouldn't necessarily assume that it's direct ratio change, because one of those 5 acres may only be able to accommodate 7 units because of their restrictions. Another one of those 5 acres may be able to accommodate 21 units based on the entire 5 acres. So I don't think it's a direct ratio change, because one may have more river frontage or wetlands than the other. So I don't think you can just do it's 20% less, so it's 20% less.
I think 5 acres came off today, right? Lori, you and Sarah?
Well, like I had said, previously, a year ago, Judy Barrett had run the analysis with 5 acres. So I just used the numbers from the initial analysis that they had run a year ago. All right,
Okay.
I think it was a year ago in May.
Oh, so we already had 5. Why did we even run 10?
Because I thought we would need to add
Mm.
some more to the 5.
Oh,
So since she was rerunning the analysis anyway, I figured it would be safer to include Harvey if we needed to include more. But it turns out we didn't need to include more.
So if there's a problem on town meeting floor and people have a problem with the 75, you just take out all 5 acres because we'll be above. And the analysis was run on the 5. So it should be able to do an analysis taking all 5 out. Not that we want to take all 5 out, but if you had to, we could, because that analysis was already run. So you could run it by just taking out Harvey.
Remember, this level of detail is not going to be discussed on town meeting floor.
Mm-mm.
They're not going to be analyzing the zoning map and being like, hey, I want you to carve out of, this little parcel here versus this little parcel there. It's either they're going to approve it or they're not.
Or they could say, I don't like the 75 acres of Harvey, take out those 5 acres.
They're not going to know about 75 acres of Harvey unless you
Mm.
mention it. It's just going to be a zoning map. That's what they're going to see, they're going to see a zoning map.
You mean 75
see-
units?
Parcels that
Oh,
are
yes, unit.
part of it. So, you think about when we are rezoning to create this highway business southwest district, nobody is asking, nor are we figuring out what the buildable square footage is of commercial space. That's not typical discussion for a zoning exercise. Because it's all, nobody knows what's going to happen ultimately, what the build out is going to be. So when you're zoning lands, we could say, oh, well, we're right now the square footage that could be built of industrial space is 1.5 million square feet. Whereas, it could be 2 million of commercial square footage. Like, we're not going through that exercise. That's not part of a typical zoning exercise.
Kathy used to do it all the time. When we changed the duplexes, we had to go through every neighborhood and see what the effect was in all the neighborhoods. And we had talked about making another zoning change, and she said it's not to be taken lightly, that we did have to go through the exercise and see what the outcome would be by making the change.
Right,
So
but I don't
maybe-
think those were discussed on town meeting.
No, but you didn't go to town meeting without doing the exercise.
But why didn't you want to do that when we were talking about the highway business southwest? I mean, that wasn't even mentioned.
Because I thought we were going the same. We're not adding housing there. It's 1 for 1. We're going commercial to commercial. We're not talking about units, and it was the same uses going from one to the other. It didn't seem like it was going to be a change.
Well, I do think people are going to notice the location, regardless of whether they do their own calculations on units or whatnot. It'll be clear where it's located. So I think it'll spark questions and discussions, and then I just think we're just gonna have to be prepared to answer that or anticipate some sort of amendment.
Yeah,
Sorry, Millie, did I cut you off?
To be honest, I think what's going to happen is either people are either not going to want it no matter what, or they're going to want it no matter what. I really don't think they're going to be looking at, well, why did you choose this one? Why did you choose
Right.
that? I really don't think they're going to get to that detail, to be honest. I think they've already made up their mind whether they're going to approve it or not.
Yeah. that could
I
be
don't
so.
disagree.
Okay, then, I mean, I guess in my view, if there is possible changes on the floor, then I don't know to what extent we want to rerun anything. If that's the case, we have to pay for each rerun. But does anyone feel differently, or Amy, do you feel differently on that one, or?
No, it's fine. If we can't change it now, then roll the dice.
Anthony, you're the one who brought up 4. What are your thoughts on that?
That's where I'd prefer to be, but I'm not gonna derail the whole board.
Would it be worth it to ask Sarah, can you take off 1 acre without rerunning everything? Because I don't know if she could. I mean, she's gone through the exercise a couple times now. And if she can, she can, and if she can't, she can't.
I like Carrie's idea about waiting till after town meeting.
Mm.
You know, I have limited budget.
Oh, I
and-
meant for free. I meant ask her if she could take off 1 acre if it costs money. And if she can, do it for free, but if it costs money, then I wouldn't do it.
Again, I don't think anyone is going to care one way, 1 acre, one way or the other. Either they're not going to vote for this because Milton didn't, or they're going to vote for it. I really don't see anyone changing their minds because of 1 acre.
So it's just gonna be the 15 units, so that may be, like, people really be like, oh, well, now that you're gonna reduce by 15, let's go for it. Maybe that is a valid,
Mhm.
But when you're
Okay.
talking about 900, is that really
are they gonna care?
15 is not going to make that much of a difference when you're talking about, 60 acres, right? 1 acre, or what, maybe 1.5% of what we're actually talking about isn't going to make much of a difference.
I just think that's like the main developable area. So I think that would be the one. I don't know. I know before town meeting on my planning board page, I always advertise I was gonna go and list the warrant. I'd probably talk about MBTA. So I was gonna list out, these are the sites, these are how many units.
And that's fine. I think people can have that information.
Yeah,
They should, they'll probably ask questions.
Yeah,
just so people know what's going on. I don't want anyone to feel like they were tricked.
right, right. I wouldn't want that either. Yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like we will go as is and then see what happens in terms of reaction, and most likely, to Bill's point, people are either already, if they know about this at all, they've already made up their mind, and if they don't, I don't know, I guess we'll just answer the questions as they come in.
Mm. Yep.
All right, anything else on this one then? Okay, so are there any other, I guess everything else is settled. That was the last of the bunch to settle.
Do we meet before town meeting? I'd leave it open because I might be able to figure out the formula. If anyone's ready, and if anybody wants to go to 4.
Remember, I'm working with GIS right now on the final maps, so now it's now or never, because I have to finalize those maps, and then we'll have to make a couple of 100 copies for distribution at town meeting.
So Amy, do you have something? Do you want to speak now or forever hold your peace on this one?
No, I'll try to figure it out anyways, but if we won't have time, but in the past, we've stayed open until the night of town meeting, and there have been discussions in the room the night before town meeting, so.
All right, well, there's no harm in leaving the hearing open. In case anything comes into light. We have we have the April 2nd and the 16th, actually. Is that correct for April? So we have a couple more meetings in April.
Yeah, so April 2nd will be the petition article town meeting, and April 16th will be the fire station.
Okay.
All right, so then do we want to motion to continue the hearing to April 2nd at 6? Are we starting at 6?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
So moved.
Second,
Okay. Okay, all in favor, Amy,
aye.
Anthony,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Millie,
Aye.
and Carrie's an aye. Let's see here. I don't see anything else of note on the agenda. It looks like next planning board meetings, like we just said, April 2nd, April 16th, next ZBA, the March 26th, and MPIC is April 18th. Is there anything else? Any other business subcommittee updates?
Nope.
Well, with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor, Amy,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Anthony,
Aye.
Millie,
Aye.
and Carrie's an aye. Okay, have a good night. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye,
Good night.